Sadie and I first really became friends. Like we first became close friends because I had a she got out of this cult, uh, and she was part of the nature of that cult was that you're not allowed to listen to music that has drum beats on the 2 and the 4.
Rush is out.
Yeah. So she like when she was growing up, literally like if music was rock and roll or if it was hip hop or if it was pop, you're supposed to just like sneer at it and turn up your nose at it and make fun of it. And that's also part of the information control and the thought control, and that they teach you reactions that you're supposed to have to something. That you see something that is not meeting your standards, you need to have XYZ reaction to it. So that's part of the cult brainwashing. So anything that would have been like rock and roll or pop music or hip hop music. She was taught that basically the music that has drum beats on the 2 and the 4, uh, those are
if it's played on the radio today.
Yeah. But like if it's got
it.
the like, and if you don't know music and you're listening to this, most songs that are in 4/4 time signature have the drum beat on the 2 and the 4. So it'll be
I'm sure your intro song
but like that is drum beats on the 2 and the 4. That's like every song. She was taught that drum beat came from Africa, and that was the drum beat that in Africa they used to summon demons, and so that's why it got used in rock and roll, is because rock and roll is the devil's music. So
I like how they worked in blaming black people too. Like
you got to have the racism in there too. Of course, they wouldn't say that it's racism. They're just like, that's just the way that it is. But so she got out of this cult in like, she started exploring different kinds of music, and one of the artists that she got into was Rush, partially because one of the things that really got that she kept with her sort of mentally when she got out of this group was that the most important thing about music was the lyrics, and the lyrics to Rush songs were always deep about like larger topics about there was always like a larger concept that they were talking about, either like Greek mythology or like some political concept or some social concept. It wasn't just like baby you're so fine. It wasn't just that.
Everything Neil wrote, especially in the later albums, everything he wrote had way more meaning than what you were hearing.
So I was a fan of Rush because I just grew up listening to that kind of music, and I had a messenger bag that said, it was like this army green messenger bag that said Rush 1974 to 2112 on it. And when we were working together, that was just the bag that I took to work, that I put my lunch in, that I put my and I would keep my change of clothes for when I went to the gym after work in that bag. And she saw that and she's like, "Oh, are you a Rush fan?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a Rush fan." And that's how we first actually became friends. So
that's awesome. I do have to say one thing, and before we go after the next thing, which I can't wait to get to. I am a Rush fan. I was at the last show. Their first show, very first big show was Pittsburgh. After they got signed. So, and one of their last shows on the last tour was Pittsburgh. I think they went here and they did the last one in Toronto, like right after, shortly after. I'm a Rush fan. I'm not a huge Rush fan, but I do think, to bring it all back, there's a little bit of cult feeling to some Rush fans.
That's what I was saying. I was saying, if you want to talk about,
if you have the big bass book and you don't play bass,
I mean, like, I kid, but I mean, there definitely are musicians and celebrities that have a very culty fan base around them.
Absolutely. Hey, before I wanted to make sure we get here. We're running out of time. We're going to go through this celebrities that should have a cult following because they're going to be on our show soon. But one who kind of does. And Josh has a really great story about a cult. And I'm just going to let him take it from there. Josh, can you jump on and tell your cult interaction story?
Well, I can try, and I have a question related to it, but I can tell the story. I think I've told on the show before, but many years ago. Actually, you said that you visited Pittsburgh somewhat recently, yeah?
Yeah, last June. Went
Okay.
to a Pirates game. Pirates are playing the Phillies.
Beautiful, beautiful
Awesome.
park.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you said you went to Primanti's,
Yeah.
which is good. So the original Primanti's, just down the street from there is, I think, the biggest cemetery in Pittsburgh, and
Really?
it's 300 acres, in pretty much the middle of the city. It's a beautiful place, and I worked there a long time ago. I worked there during the day, but I also lived there. There's a big castle on the grounds, and they had us stay there, and we ran security at night. It's that big of a place that they wanted somebody there overnight to make sure everything was okay. So at the time, there was one other guy staying there with me, good guy named Pat. Shout out Pat. And we're hanging out downstairs in the common area one day, watching TV, playing Nintendo, whatever it was. And there's a knock at the door, which is very out of the ordinary, especially at, I think it was 9 o'clock at night. To get into the cemetery and knock on this door at this point, you've got to know that there's a gate to walk through. You've got to walk through that gate and then find the door to this building that we reside, we're living in.
Lived in.
So we go answer the door, both of us, and outside is what turns out to be, he claims, a plainclothes police officer and a psychiatrist. And they ask if they
sound
can
like a horror movie.
Come in and talk to us. And we said, sure. So they come in and they ask us a number of odd questions, but mostly relating to, have you seen anything weird around any of the mausoleums in the cemetery? We said no. We do rounds here every night. That's why we're here, and nothing really out of place. And they said, okay. And they kind of wrapped it up and said, if you see anything, here's our card. Give us a call. And a few days later, my buddy Pat that was with me there, he comes back from his rounds and he says, hey, so I just saw something kind of odd. I was passing by one of the mausoleums up on the hill in the middle, and there was a tiki torch outside of one of the mausoleums. I walked up, and the chain that it was supposed to be locking the front of it seemed to be loose, but nothing else was out of place, just odd. And I said, oh, well, what are you going to do? It's not odd enough to call the police. Why would we do that? That's crazy. So we don't think much of it, but we start taking loops by there. And the next week, another tiki torch shows up. And so we start going by there nightly, walking around, flashlight, making sure nobody's there. And eventually, during the day, we notice that the chain is fully broken off. So we walk inside, and there is a sleeping bag, or a ton of empty orange juice containers, some mouthwash, odds and ends. Just looks like somebody homeless had shacked up in here for a bit. And so this keeps happening over the course of a little while. These weird things keep showing up around here, and we keep searching it. Every night we go up there, we're doing our rounds, we'll look around, see what we can find. Couple months later, same thing. 9 o'clock at night, knock at the door. We open it, same two guys. Hey, fellas, what's up? They said, so have you guys seen anything? We said, well, you're not going to believe this, but there's this tiki torch showed up, and we walked them through the story I just walked everybody through here. And they said, oh, well, that's interesting. Can we go take a look? We said, sure. So we got the extra flashlights, and all four of us took a trip up inside the cemetery. And they said, can we go inside? And we said, sure, it's broken open. Please take a look. And so they go around, and they're poking around for a bit, and they grab a few things and put them into a bag. And as we're driving them back up to the front of the cemetery, they tell us, finally, that they were back because they had just found, floating in the river, the leader of Pittsburgh's largest satanic cult. And his girlfriend had told them a few weeks prior, when they showed up the first time, that his literal small black book of people he had murdered was being held at the place he was staying, which was a mausoleum he had broken into in a local cemetery.
No.
So we had been up there for a few months at that point, searching for who they said was a murderer and leader of the biggest satanic cult in the city by ourselves without knowing it. But that leads me to the question I had, which is, you always hear satanic cult. That's the scary one, right? How often do you come across those as opposed to a Christian-related cult of some kind?
So I don't. Most of the people who are like into Satanism are into Satanism to either be like edgy, or to try to be like, you know, or like heavy metal, or to try to give the finger
jacket
to the or you know, try to do something to like give the finger to what they see as
fuck the man.
Even, F the man, you know, or in protest of the cozy relationship between the church and the government. And they're trying to say, well,
Satanists are basically admitting we don't believe in any of this. We just want to show you how dumb you are. Like
a lot of them are, although there is some people who like, there is a few of them. There's like, it was more of the occult was much more of a popular thing, I think, back in the mid-century than it is now. So most of the people that you hear about that are that say that they're Satanists are actually just like atheists who like a Satanist aesthetic. Whereas there's a lot of really culty Christian churches out there. And the people who are Satanists, who are like really into the Satanism, they kind of seem like they're in on the bit.
That's why I'm curious, because that wouldn't fit. Yeah, that wouldn't fit the definition that you've given here of a cult then, right?
No, but
they're of their own accord, so.
Right, but I think there are, like, definitely there have been Satanist cults. I just can't think of any off the top of my head that really jump to mind immediately. And I'm absolutely sure that I've talked about some of these groups on our podcast.
Okay.
We've talked about so many of these groups that...
Well, I'm going to go back and listen.
Yeah. There's like the Satanic Temple. There's a few of them. There's like the Church of Satan. The Church of Satan is one, and then the Satanic Temple is the other one. The Satanic Temple is the one where they're like really politically involved, where what they do is they like... Do you know who the Westboro Baptist Church are? The God hates everyone people.
Those royal pieces of shit.
Yeah, they suck.
The worst.
They actually.
I would say they're a satanic cult, if anything. They're just pretending.
So
to not be.
The Satanic Temple did a Fred Phelps, who was the guy who was like the head of the Westboro Baptist Church. The Satanic Temple did a like Satanic Temple ritual to make his mother gay in the afterlife. So they like did.
I remember that.
Here it worked.
Yeah.
Here it worked.
They're like, that's like the thing that they're about. Is kind of being tongue in cheek, a little bit edgelordy, a little bit like that.
Real life trolls.
Yeah, but then again, there's also like, actually, you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about there was this metal band from, I believe, like late 80s, early 90s called Mayhem, and they behaved very much like a satanic cult.
Well, I'm glad it was a heavy metal band that did it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like really upset if it was like, I don't know, John Denver.
Yeah.
Although that would be a cool story.
It would be a great story.
He made Rocky Mountain High, and he was the member of a satanic cult.
If you push back his flop of hair, there's a
big 666 right up here. Hey, listen, we've reached the 1 hour mark, and I still have a billion questions for you. So I know I'm going to ask you to come back at some point. Well, how about we do one or two more good questions?
Okay.
And I do appreciate you sticking around, because I do. The ones I want to get to.
This has been a great interview.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. Thank you. Like I could tell that you do this a lot and you love doing it. So Thank you for doing it with us.
Such an interesting topic, and I'm so glad that I get to talk about it for a living, basically.
I'm really glad you came here to tell us
you're
about
good
it.
at it.
Yeah, you're really just, I love tapping into your brain here.
Yeah.
So I think I really always want to get to, in any conversation like this, the safe ways for someone to get themselves out or to get someone else out. And if you even want to touch on it, I remember at some point that, I don't know how much this is true, there are professionals that will go in and get your daughter out, or anything you want to tell people about the process of getting out of a cult once you or a loved one is in.
So it very much depends on the situation. Like, you have to think about, are you physically
Well, how do you
in
get
danger?
yourself out?
How do you get yourself out? I've
Safely.
never done it. So I wouldn't be able to tell you from personal experience, but having talked to other people, one of the things that's most important is trying to figure out that you can is breaking down the mental barriers first, and then once those are broken down, you have the ability to remove yourself physically. So usually when somebody is getting out of a group like that, it won't be just, oh, one thing happened and that was the thing that made me decide that it was time for me to leave. It will be behind the scenes, something they've been having questions, and they've been noticing discrepancies, or they've been aware of a certain situation that just something didn't sit right with them about this situation, and they just weren't happy, or they'd been having doctrinal questions or something like that behind the scenes. And this can go on for months. This can go on for years. And then something will happen, and that will be the tipping point that will make them say, okay, well, it's time for me to go now. And either that could be like oh, if I don't leave now, then I might never, or it could be like somebody bad did this thing, and that was the thing that it took to snap me out of it. I can't go and speak on how best to do that and how to extricate yourself safely, because, that is really changeable by specific situations. And a lot of cult groups won't necessarily even keep you in a situation where you're like walled in. Like when you think of like with a compound like Waco or like Jonestown, where they were physically in a place, a location that they couldn't leave. Because if the mental barriers are there, then you don't need the physical barriers.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
To sort of answer your question, that's what I would say. If you're trying to get somebody else out, or there's somebody who you think has really drunk the Kool-Aid, or so to speak, on either like an ideology or a belief system that you think is actually really harmful, going up to them and confronting them about it and trying to berate them into it isn't going to work. That's not a way to do it. The way that I've heard to do it is that you have to be willing to ask them about it, like from a position of interest. Like, what does this mean to you? What do you get out of this? Does this make you happy? And really have them talk to you about it and engage with them about it from a position of like actual interest and understanding, rather than just being like, you need to leave. Because if they get, oh, this is somebody who's just coming to me to attack me, rather than this is somebody who's interested and wants to know what I actually think, then that could be a problem. They're also going to have been told probably that outsiders are hostile to them. Outsiders are dangerous.
Do not understand you.
Right. Yeah. They don't understand you. They don't want to know. And so if you come and approach somebody with kindness, and you come and approach somebody with, I want to know what it is that you actually think, let's have an honest conversation about this, then that might also be effective in turning the gears and thinking, maybe I was taught wrong about what outsiders think and how they act towards me and what they think of me.
And that's really good advice for any difficult subject. Just talk and listen. Yeah. Don't accuse, don't hate, don't tell them they're wrong, don't cajole, just talk, see what they're saying, and then see where your connections are as people. And
we do live in a world that is run on who can be the most divisive and who can say the thing that pisses the most people off because that's what gets the most engagement.
Yep.
And that's the wrong way to go about it. And that might make you feel good if you're the person that says the thing that gets the most engagement or that's the most divisive, because it gets the biggest reaction and you get to rally the troops in the biggest way. But if you're really trying to connect with people and you're really trying to convince people to, or not convince people, but you're really trying to get somebody to change their perspective, you have to engage with them openly and honestly, and you have to be willing to, like, and this is, I guess this is an example from my life, and this isn't necessary. This is about more like, because I used to be much more on social media than I am now. I've very much taken a step back from social media, which is
I have too. Other than Instagram to promote the show, and Reddit, which is the last social media I actually care even a little bit about.
I like Reddit. Reddit's fun.
Reddit's great at getting rid of the stuff I don't want to see in general. It's hard when people want to always throw politics into a meme or whatever light humor I want.
Constantly,
but
and when that's not what you want to think about at that time, it's just like
I want to see a funny clown picture. What are you doing to me? I'm with you. It's a toxic world out there, and Facebook's gotten even worse with now that they suggest other people's posts and it's almost always something I could care less about, and more often than not lately, it's stuff that I actively don't want to see.
I want to see my dad post hiking pictures. That's what I want on Facebook. I don't want to see.
I miss the old days of some kid going to first day at school. Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.